so
I hope
much,
this is your day.
Miss
That's
Sally
wonderful.
Sablan. By the way, Miss Sally Sablan, I felt to
Yay.
recognize in the introduction that she's also one of our first year experience seminar, faculty. She teaches, and she almost went into her 7 habits for us this morning. But thank you so much. That was wonderful. We really appreciate it. I just was waiting for that moment where we could do the namaste and all that.
Oh,
But I guess that's more advanced yoga. But thank you so much. This was wonderful. Great idea by Dr. Annette and Dr. Anita for bringing Sally on. And I just was delighted to bring her on for us this morning. So thank you so much.
you're welcome. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, so good segue into the next item on the agenda, and that is now to have our wonderful guest, Dr. KristiAnna Whitman, to speak to us this morning. Dr. KristiAnna Whitman is a licensed professional counselor on Guam and is currently serving as the project director for the GLS Youth Suicide Prevention Grant, which is a Guam Focus on Life and also administered by Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. She has taught courses in human services and counseling at both Guam Community College and the University of Guam. She is active in the Association of Individual, Marriage, and Family Therapists and serves as a support coordinator for Postpartum Support International. And she also once served on the board for Sanctuary Incorporated. She holds a bachelor's in American Studies and Psychology from the University of Notre Dame, a master's in counseling from Seattle University, and a doctorate in counselor education and supervision from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Her research interests include cultural competence in counseling professionals, and my favorite one, the use of peer mentoring and counseling to promote academic persistence. She spends the most time these days with her husband, Bill, and her son, Orion Michael, who are the greatest sources of mental wellness. Let's all give a warm welcome to Dr. KristiAnna Whitman. Got the mic?
Oh, okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry, oh yeah, and I'll need to do a screen share. Thank you, and that was really a treat with Sally. I'm glad we didn't do CrossFit because I wasn't prepared for that. I was a little bit more mentally prepared for chair yoga, so I appreciate that. This is actually my very first Rotary Club meeting, so I'll be honest, when Dean Lawrence contacted me last week, I think Thursday or Friday, I was super nervous. I was like, God, the Rotary Club, isn't that like televised and in a ballroom and, like a big deal. And then he kind of, pulled me down a little bit. So I really do appreciate the invite, and I'm excited to kind of share what I hope you feel is beneficial information with regards to our mental health and basically our well-being. And I think Sally did a great segue in terms of just kind of introducing us and reminding us that we could all use little reminders of how to really take care of ourselves and be kind to ourselves. It's a difficult time, and a lot of times we're trying to do all the things that we thought or were normally capable of, and these are not normal times. So I think if there's anything else, anything that I can leave you with today is just that feeling of maybe validation that what you're doing, even being here at this meeting at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning from your homes or wherever you are, is validation that you're doing everything you can to kind of keep going during this difficult time. So I'll go ahead and get started because like Sally said, you all have lots of things going on today. And so I'm gonna try to maximize our brief time together now. Okay, all right. So we're going to talk a little bit about mental health, and I put in parentheses and COVID-19 because I know that I'm a big fan of looking for silver linings in even really difficult situations or hard times. And if there is any silver lining with the pandemic that has occurred, it has been the leverage or I guess the platform it has given to mental health issues. I'm getting contacted a lot these days to do sort of kind of talks like this or to provide kind of best tips or strategies for dealing with mental health and wellness. And even my dad, I was on the link a couple weeks ago, and he kind of, he talked to me after and he said, oh, wow, you know, what you said really makes sense. I was like, gosh, Dad, I hope so. That was your years of education for me, you know, and for you to finally believe whatever I'm saying, you know, makes sense. But it's kind of giving people that kind of time and that space to say, you know what, let me check in on how I'm doing. And, you know, maybe this mental health thing is real. And so that's kind of, you know, the space that I want to kind of give you. You all are leaders in various organizations around the island. And so it's really important to not only attend to your our mental health and our well-being, but also the people who are part of our organizations, right? The staff, the students, the clients that we're serving, and kind of be mindful of the space that we're working in. So who am I? Dean Lawrence shared a bit about my background, but I share it again, and I like to start any kind of presentation with this because the lens I'm working through is that of a counselor, you know, is that of someone who's very focused on mental health issues and is kind of see myself as a mental health advocate. So I'm very comfortable with talking about these things. I'm very comfortable about talking about my emotions and my feelings. I have 3 sisters, and if having sisters isn't enough of emotion for you, imagine having a sister who's a counselor. So my sisters always say, don't try to therapize me. We're just trying to argue right now. Don't try to counsel me. I don't need your counseling. So it's, you know, that's kind of the space I'm working through. So kind of thinking about that. I became a mother about a year ago, and that has also really changed and shaped, reframed. I know there's a lot of parents on this call, but that's really shaped and changed how I see things and kind of my focus and where I want to put my energy. And so throughout this whole pandemic time, I always think about, okay, well, we want to be good, or I want to be good for my workplace, but am I being good to my primary organization, which is my home, right? Am I being good for the people who I'm going home to all day, every day? So I think about that a lot when I'm kind of thinking about, okay, how do I want to spend my time during the day? What things am I gonna let bother me or take up my space in my brain, you know? And is that going to benefit the people who I'm going home to, right? And that's very fluid right now because we're oftentimes at home with the people with our workspace, and right now we're at home with our workspace and we're at home with the people we're home with. So it's all kind of blurred lines, which makes things a little bit more difficult, right? So I want to just remind everyone that the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of worry, fear, these are all normal feelings to have during these difficult times, right? And this fear, this worry, this anxiety can come from lots of different things. It could be related to your own health concerns, right? I know back in March when the first announcements of COVID-19 were first coming out, I was constantly checking my temperature in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, you know, and I was any kind of little like scratch in my throat. I was like, oh, should I get tested? I think I went to the doctor twice to try and get tested, and Dr. Nguyen was kind of like, stop, you know, you don't need to get tested, you know, and so. Anyhow, you know, those could be related to your own health concerns. Also the health of those you care about, right? You know, you worry about going into the office because you don't want to come home and potentially impact or infect anyone at your home. You have concern for caring for children or the elderly if you have other dependents. A big thing, you know, is with regards to childcare, right? Childcare, schooling. I know that's a big concern for people who have kids who are in school and having them at home. How do they navigate that when they're working also from at home or have to report to work? Then the uncertainty or frustration, right? When are things going to get back to normal? Are they ever going to get back to normal? We saw a nice kind of break, I guess, over the summer months, right? Briefly, where things were feeling a little bit more relaxed, and we were kind of getting our groove back, and we were starting to see people and get back together. I actually attended a birthday party during that time, and I can't even imagine attending something like that right now. So there's a lot of uncertainty or frustration around like when are things going to go back to the way they were and what that might look like. Loneliness, anger, and grief, right, are definitely common feelings during this period. And grief comes in so many different forms, and can be caused by so many different things. Not only the real, grief of people losing loved ones and having people die of COVID-19, but the grief of losing your job, the grief of losing your normal schedule, right? The grief of not being able to see your coworkers, the grief of not being able to spend, the holidays are coming up and people are, going to be even more, grieving all those traditions that we once had. And so how are you going to deal with that? So these are all, again, I just want to remind that those feelings are normal feelings. It's not, to have during this time. So common tips you'll find, and I can do a quick Google search, and this is what's going to come up, right, for dealing with that. Obviously we want to stay informed using official resources. I like to call the most the most common, what do you call it, the biggest cause for concern, or is the well, I'm going to use my mom, and I swear I used her for too many examples, but she always refers to the news. Oh, I saw that on the news. Where did you see that on the news, Mom? Oh, so and so shared it on the Facebook, and then I don't know, it's from WhatsApp, and and I'm like, okay, Mom, like, let's go back for a second. Where did you get this information? When was this shared? Who shared this? And is it in real time, et cetera, et cetera? Because a lot of that, it can cause a lot of panic, right? Especially when it's coming from, people we think are official resources, right? My neighbor, of course they're official. They're not going to share fake news, right? So, but that can cause a lot of additional problems. We're going to hear, it's important to get good sleep. A lot of times we associate lack of sleep with increased productivity, and that's not right. If we have good sleep, we'll be able to be more productive. And in our culture, our fast-paced culture, we want to move forward, and we think that if I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep, that means that I have 19, 20 hours of work to do, and that's really shouldn't be the case. Eating a healthy, balanced diet, right? Obviously, I see a lot of people with their water and their coffee and everything else, and that's really, all of that is all important. In the first lockdown, my family and my husband and I really gave ourselves the kind of the excuse of like, oh, it's kind of like buckling down for a typhoon, right? You get to eat the ichiban, you get to eat the spam and fried rice, and do all those things. And after like a month went by and 2 months went by, we're like, okay, we can't be doing this anymore. This is, I think we're in this for the long haul. So this lockdown, I was really much more conscientious of that, and kind of tried to maintain like, okay, because it really does make a difference. Avoiding the news 24/7, that kind of goes along with staying informed using official resources. A lot of times we think that staying connected is more important, and kind of knowing what's going on at every hour, but that can also cause a lot of anxiety, right? Avoiding alcohol or drugs in excess, right? I'm not going to say don't drink, because a lot of us, that could be a source of support, having a nice glass of wine at the end of the day, having a really good beer, with your coworkers or whatever it is. Just be mindful of that. So again, these are the most common tips for dealing with these issues. This is what you're going to find on any kind of CDC website, or the WHO, or even on Guam Behavioral Health's common tips, right? But I'm going to kind of share and pare it down a little bit and share what has really worked for me. A lot of times, self-care and getting through mental health issues, it's very personal. And I think one of the kind of misconceptions is that there's kind of, a way or a formulaic way of dealing with our mental health or dealing with stress, right? And there really isn't. And then what happens is people who start to try things like, for example, chair yoga or yoga, if I tried it for the first time and it didn't work, I'm gonna say, oh man, I'm not gonna do that, right? Or if I went to counseling for the first time, or therapy, and or saw a psychologist, and it, I didn't fit with them, I'm gonna give it off as, oh, that doesn't, write it off as that doesn't work. But it's really about fit, right? And sometimes, like anything else, right? Like kind of like relationships, right? Sometimes you have to get through a couple of difficult ones, or ones that you maybe don't, didn't really enjoy, to get to the good stuff and figure out what works. So relaxing your body. So Sally really gave us kind of an example of that relaxation of our body using the deep breathing. But again, find what works for you. I used to be a really avid runner, and because gyms have been closed and everything, I was really hard on myself about not wanting. I don't really have the desire to go outside and run. I just want to stay inside, and for a while I was feeling really, really guilty about that, and it was making me more anxious. Like, God, why am I like running? What's going on? What's going on? And then I finally gave up and said, you know what? Let me just put my kid in the stroller, in the jogging stroller, and just walk. And like maybe I just need that time and that space, and that's okay. Stop. Kind of be gentle with yourself, right? And that's okay, right? As long as you're getting some sort of movement. But I guess the point of that is that the things that worked for you before may not work for you right now. They may not be as effective. Again, going back to that, we can't necessarily keep the same or have the same expectations of ourselves because we're in a different space and we're in a different time. So be gentle with yourself. Pace yourself. So I like to do something fun after I've completed something more difficult or stressful. And so, for example, after this meeting, I'm going to take 15 minutes to really enjoy my coffee or walk outside and figure out what my husband's doing out there that's maybe, more exciting. After a training session, taking time to maybe have a good meal, binge on a good TV show after a long work week. And again, make that be okay for you. It's not easy to be sitting on these meetings all day long. It's just not, it's not the same, right? In real life, you have these kind of intermittent or small spaces where we can chat with each other and say, hey, how are things going? But in a Zoom meeting, you don't have that space. You're like constantly focused on whatever's going on at the time. So it's that much more draining. So anyhow, I like to kind of chunk my work and chunk myself and kind of give myself something to look forward to after like a Zoom meeting or something like that. Talk to others. Sounds really basic, but this has been something that's been really, really important for me to maintain throughout this year. Is really to find your support people and use them, but also maintain that connection to the degree that you find useful or find helpful for you. Some relationships just might not be that that might not be good ones to have at the moment. And I can tell you there are certain people that in my life that I don't necessarily want to talk to as often because their energy is very negative, or they're just it's just not good for me to deal with at this moment. But it's still important. We talk about social distancing all the time, but really physical distancing doesn't mean we have to socially distance, right? I've actually picked up my phone and called people a lot more than I have in the past. And I tell people, like, don't freak out if your phone rings, right? Because, we're so used to like text messages or WhatsApps, but, I just tell them, I just want to hear your voice and not via Zoom, because we do that all day. I just want to pick up the phone and call a friend, and, don't panic if you get a phone call from me. So just, really kind of find people that who are good for you, right? And use them. Maintain hope. Again, they all sound very simplistic and simple, but it's important, right? Positive thinking really helps. Consider keeping a gratitude journal, and it doesn't have to be something like formal. I'm like very old school, and I still hold a paper planner. And so in my paper planner, sometimes I'll just write little reminders of myself or to myself, just relax, or, call mom. I don't know, check in with yourself, take a break, just to kind of remind yourself of, what's going on and how to keep yourself going, right? Daily affirmations could be helpful. If you're a spiritual person, pray. And then maybe even do a negativity detox. Are there spaces where you think you can eliminate negative attitudes? Recently, I took kind of a social media break, and it was really good for me, and it's just kind of reminded myself to kind of stay grounded in the things that kind of give me good energy, right? Not that there's nothing wrong with social media, but sometimes you can get really get lost in everything that's going on there and find yourself a little bit stuck. So these are things that I think, again, like I said, these are aspects of self-care that have been really helpful for me. Not all the time though, even me with all the tools and all these tips, things can be difficult, right? And that's okay also, but there are also things that we want to do and be mindful of, especially as leaders of organizations, in terms of recognizing when someone might be having more difficulty, difficulty, right? And maybe it's not just normal anxiety or normal worry. So these feelings of isolation, depression, anxiety, and other emotional, financial stressors are known to raise the risk for suicide, right? And it wouldn't be a conversation with me if I didn't bring this up. So suicide is, though, it's very preventable. And one of the things that we think about is the connection with others, right? Helping and connecting with others for us, even as individuals, can be a source of stress relief, right? When we talk to other people, when we provide a helping hand. I mean, that's kind of maybe one of the reasons you're all a part of this organization, right? Is that feeling you get from giving back to the community, that feeling you get from doing these humanitarian efforts, right? And so, we want to think about how can we be a part of also this problem with suicide. Oftentimes we shy away from asking others about thoughts of suicide because we may not know how to engage in that kind of conversation. We may not think it's our business also, we might see someone who's down or not their jolly self, and we might just think, oh, they're having a bad day. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to butt in, right? But sometimes that's all they need is you to just connect and check in on them. Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Is there anything I can help you with? So kind of those check-ins can just be very, again, it's a simple step, but it can be very impactful for the person who might need that connection at the time. But I'm going to kind of go into a little bit real quickly. I think I'm going to just share a little bit about the program that I run at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and kind of invite you all, because again, like I said, oftentimes the reasons we don't check in with other people with regards to suicide or their suicidal thoughts is because we're not sure how to deal with that or approach that situation. So I'm going to kind of share with you some guidelines or some thoughts in terms of how you can maybe get prepared to deal with that. So the grant that I'm in charge of is called Guam Focus on Life, and it's one of its main goals is to reduce stigma of receiving mental health and support and help. So we want people who are having really, increased feelings of worry or grief or anger or, real distressful emotions. We want them to feel okay about getting help, the help they need, right? Another one of our goals is to train natural supports. And all of you are examples of these natural supports. The teachers the teachers who work with the students, the coaches that work with their players, the advisors for student organizations, the neighbor who I go to check, to get extra rice if I run out of rice, right? You're those natural people in the person's life who may not have formal education, but you might be the one to connect with them at that right time, right? Another one of our goals is to increase research in suicide. We are establishing a fellowship program with the University of Guam, which I think I'm most excited for, and Dean Lawrence and I know President Anita are very excited about that also. And then also to increase suicide prevention efforts in local higher education institutions. So that's my grant in a nutshell. It's a 5-year program or 5-year grant program, and Guam has actually received this grant program in the past, or this grant in the past. But I share also because I do want to leave with the message of, what can you do also to be a part of this. And so I'm going to share, this is a PSA that we produced in conjunction with the governor's office, and it's encouraging people to get trained in suicide prevention. And after you watch this, I'm going to briefly share one quick training you could do if you're interested. I am a school counselor. I'm a police officer.
KristiAnna, the sound.
Yeah, there's no sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what you're trying to tell me. Maybe, okay. I hear it on my end. Let's see. Stop share. Let's see. let me try it one more time. Sorry about that.
Yeah, still no sound.